Back in 2002, when I was spending my days playing Crash Bandicoot and thinking the Max Steel movies were peak CGI, I also sit down with my family to watch the Brazil vs Germany final. I didn't understand anything about the context of the match or who the players were, but I remember one thing clearly. From that moment on, Ronaldo became every kid's idol at school. What I didn't know was that this same Ronaldo had just come back from an injury that kept him out of football for over a year. That's why, years later, a lot of people still say that if injuries hadn't messed up his career, he probably would have been the greatest of all time. But do these football fan schizophrenic fantasies actually have any truth to them? Was pre-injury Ronaldo one of the biggest talents the game has ever seen? To answer that, we need to look at what Ronaldo was like before the setbacks. At just 16, he joined Cruzeiro and immediately lit things up. 44 goals in 47 games. In 1993, a year later, he made his debut for Brazil at 17 and was called up to the World Cup squad. And yeah, while Baggio cursed the day penalties were invented, teenage Ronaldo was on the bench celebrating as Brazil lifted the trophy. After that, he joined Dutch side PSV Eindhoven. Even with some early injuries, he scored 54 goals in 57 games across 2 seasons. In 1996, Barcelona dropped a world record fee to sign the 20-year-old phenomenon. One season, 47 goals in 49 matches. That year, he won La Liga's top scorer, the European Golden Shoe, and FIFA World Player. But contract issues led to a shocking departure after just one season. Inter Milan dropped another world record fee in 1997 to sign him, and Ronaldo didn't disappoint. He lit up Serie A with 25 league goals, won the UEFA Cup, picked up his second FIFA World Player of the Year, and became the youngest player to ever win the Ballon d'Or at just 21. But were those numbers actually that crazy? Well, let's just say they didn't call him un fenómeno only because of his insane parties.
Tan buenas eran las fiestas.
Pero la gente se lo imagina y está bien en la imaginación, pero no tiene ni idea lo bueno que era.
To put it in perspective, before turning 21, Ronaldo had already scored 167 goals. Yep, and that's not a typo. Compare that to Cristiano Ronaldo's 36, Messi's 51, Mbappe's 116, and Haaland's 117. And in goals per game, he smoked them all of them too, averaging 0.9 goals per match before 21. The closest was Haaland with 0.7, but the real kicker was that most of those goals weren't just stat-padding penalties. That to me is a big reason why the phenomenon is remembered with so much nostalgia. In today's tactical football, where players often pass backward instead of dribbling just to avoid losing, you don't see many goals born purely from insane individual brilliance. Ronaldo's goals were exactly that. Just watch his hat-trick versus Valencia. He grabs the ball and with pure power makes defenders question their entire careers. Or the goal versus Compostela. He picks it up from the midfield, gets yanked by the shirt, keeps going like a bulldozer, and scores anyway. With all that, it felt like everything was building up to his moment at the 1998 World Cup in France. But on the day of the final, something strange happened. He had a mysterious convulsive fit. At first, he was left out of the lineup. Then, just 40 minutes before the kickoff, he was suddenly back in. Brazil lost 3-0 to France, but that lost final wasn't the biggest blow of his career. The real hit, and the reason why Ronaldo is one of the biggest what-ifs in football history, came with the injuries he suffered at Inter in 1999 and 2000. In November 1999, during a match against Lecce, Ronaldo injured his right knee. He had surgery and began rehab, and things looked promising. 5 months later, in April 2000, he was ready to make his comeback. But what happened next was brutal. In his very first match back, just 6 minutes after stepping onto the pitch, his knee completely gave out. It was one of the most shocking scenes in football. Ronaldo collapsed, screaming in pain. He had torn his patellar tendon clean, a full rupture. The recovery was long, painful and intense, almost 2 full years of rehab. But incredibly, in September 2001, he made his return with Inter, and his killer instinct was still there. He scored 7 goals in 10 matches. That comeback opened the door to what would become one of the greatest redemption arcs in football, the 2002 World Cup. And of course he showed up not just with goals, but with one of the most iconic haircuts in football history. Ronaldo bagged 8 goals, took home the Golden Boot, and led Brazil to the title. That same year, he joined Real Madrid and shined in his first 2 seasons, but once again, injuries started creeping in, and his form began to drop. In 2007, he left the club, then came a spell at AC Milan where he showed flashes of brilliance, but yet again, a serious knee injury hit, and this time, it marked the end of his time in European football. After that, he went back to Brazil for one last dance with Corinthians. He won domestic titles and, incredibly, was still showing glimpses of that same magic, dribbling past defenders even though by then he weighed over 100 kilograms. That's when you realize someone's talent is just unreal. When with that body he's still embarrassing defenders 30 kilos lighter than him. Finally, in 2011, at 34 years old, Ronaldo tearfully announced his retirement, admitting his body just couldn't keep up anymore. So what would have happened if Ronaldo had stayed injury-free? Take 2003 for example, he had already scored in the first leg of the Champions League semi-finals against Juventus, but an injury kept him out of the return leg. Madrid were eliminated. In 2004, he was back in great form and helped the team reach the quarterfinals, but once again, an injury ruled him out of the clash with Monaco, and Madrid got knocked out again. Without those key absences, Ronaldo could have been the difference maker in both ties, and based on the level he was playing at during those years, it's totally fair to believe that Real Madrid might have made it to the final, maybe even won it. And here is the twist. Even the legendary 2002 World Cup, the ultimate comeback, might have played out differently without the injury. That entire run was fueled by his long recovery and the hunger to prove he was still the best. If he hadn't been injured, who's to say he would deliver that same performance? In a parallel world, maybe Oliver Kahn doesn't have to relive that rebound in his nightmares every single night. And if we want to go full speculative mode, Ronaldo could have easily kept up that insane goal-scoring pace. That's why, even though we'll never know for sure, a lot of people still say that a fully healthy Ronaldo would have been the GOAT, ahead of Messi or Cristiano. His numbers before the injuries were on another level, and his style of play was one of the most complete we've ever seen. Personally, I don't think he would have hit the same numbers as those two. Messi and Cristiano are part of a new generation, players who changed the game when it comes to longevity. A lot of players from Ronaldo's era didn't have those injuries, were disciplined, and still didn't make it to 40 with elite stats. In the 90s and 2000s, being an attacking player at 35 or 36 was rarer than Atletico Madrid lifting a Champions League trophy. So the real debate is this: could Ronaldo, even with fewer numbers, still have been the GOAT if he had stayed healthy? And yeah, it's almost impossible to prove, but in my opinion, absolutely. The only one who could have challenged him is Messi. The way Ronaldo played back then felt unrepeatable. Explosiveness, precision, dribbling, power, all in one package, and all before turning 21. If we allow ourselves to get a little dreamy for a second, just imagine that what we saw before the injuries wasn't even Ronaldo's prime. Most strikers hit their physical and mental peak at 23 or 24. If pre-injured Ronaldo wasn't even there yet, then a fully healthy version of him past 24 would have smashed every record we know. With that Ronaldo, maybe Brazil wouldn't have crashed out in the 2006 or 2010 World Cups. Maybe 2014 wouldn't have become what it became. Although, let's be honest, by then Ronaldo probably would have retired anyway, so not even in alternate timelines can David Luiz be happy. But hey, maybe some of you in the comments will say I'm just another nostalgic fan, and maybe that's fair. I grew up watching him, but as we've seen, even looking at it from a purely statistical and objective angle, what he did in such a short time, with all the setbacks, still puts him in a top 3 or top 5 of all time. Anyway, let me know in the comments, am I completely delusional, or do you really believe Ronaldo could have been the undisputed GOAT?